I'm here to give a bit of an overview on how our shark species threatened in South Africa and what we should do about it. I'm Italian. I moved to South Africa in 2009 to work specifically on white shark. And besides the work for the SharkSafe Barrier, of which I'm a founding director, I'm an extraordinary lecturer at Stellenbosch University, and I have students actively working on shark population estimates based using genetic technique and photo identification technique. And this phrase from Jacques Cousteau resonates very well with people working on sharks. When Jacques Cousteau say that people protect what they love what they understand, and they understand what they're taught, is very true. People tend to fear what they don't know. And in the case of shark, we have the double issue of people not knowing shark well, or knowing them from a bit of some bias movie like Jaws, that is a now 48 years old movie, but still brought sharks into everybody's home. And when I say I work with white sharks, that's what normally people think about. They have documentaries, Shark Week documentaries that are still portraying sharks as this villain of the ocean. And we make sure that our next generation will grow up with the same concept by having the sharks being the villain of the situation, whether other top predators, such as lion, had such an incredibly positive press with the Lion King and how important they are for the ecosystem. So this brings me to another concept that we call these animal sharks. But in fact, there are more than 500 different species of sharks. They're not all the same. We have 98 shark species in South Africa. South Africa is one of the locations with the highest shark biodiversity in the world. And we go from the massive white sharks to the tiniest puff-headed shark. Sharks like the lantern shark that sits on the palm of your hand, or pyjama shark. We have so many species that are completely harmless to humans because either too small or just eating plankton, like the whale shark. And yet we group all of these animals under the same name that tends to fuel this fear for these animals. And yet, if we just get to know them better, I believe we will start changing our perception because they're incredibly important for the environment. There are top predators the same as lion and leopard and tiger and wolf. And when we started to learn more about top predators on land, our normal fear became fascination, became respect. And that could be translated in conservation efforts. Shark in particular are also umbrella species. So without a good and healthy ecosystem, we cannot have them. We need the whole food chain to be healthy for them to be sustained. They are very slow in their maturity stage, most of them. They have long lifespan compared to bony fishes. They are very slow at reproduction. Because they are at the top of the food chain, especially the big one, they're also not supposed to have predators on top of them. No, they are at the top of the pyramid already. So when humans come in like an enormous wrecking ball on top of this pyramid, that is where the problem starts for these species. They also key to maintain the balance in the marine food chain. They eliminate the weak individuals in their prey, so that they can take away the sickest animal and prevent the spread of diseases. They keep the population of prey small. And by doing that, they don't just keep them small, they also keep them confined. So, for instance, white shark would be hunting in corridors where seals will try to avoid these corridors because that is where they are more likely to get hunted. And this area became a safe area for smaller fishes. Without the biggest predator, then all of this balance get compromised. And to make it even more like straightforward, it's not just a matter of ecosystem balance. Is a fishing industry is targeting should be targeting smaller fishes at that level of the food chain, and without our top predator, the mesopredators are going to increase in number. Our seals, our dolphin are going to increase, and that will also deplete the fish stock that our fishery is supposed to be taking. And when we come to South Africa, I mean, the understanding that we need to regulate shark fishing is there, but not all species have the same level of protection. White shark were firstly protected in South Africa in 1991. South Africa was actually the first country globally to protect these species. And we have white shark, whale shark, sawfishes, manta, scalloped hammerhead also listed in the cited list. We have a National Environmental Biodiversity Act from 2004. Some species are listed as stops so that there is a regulation, a limit on the catches for the recreational activity, because the top still doesn't apply if people have commercial permit to kill top species. There have been a shark biodiversity management plan from 2015, FAO plan, National Plan of Action for Sharks, and then more recently, an important shark and ray area investigation led by the IUCN and Wild Ocean to try and see how much information do we have to make some area protected for the sharks. But as you can see in this little graph from 2018, a big problem is the data deficiency. More than half of the shark, we just don't know how many there are, where do they reproduce. Even the iconic white shark, we don't quite know where do they mate. We don't know precisely how long do they live. Or, you know, there's a lot of information that would be important to have in terms of management. What brought me to South Africa in 2009 was exactly that. I wanted to figure out how many white sharks we have around our coastline. And for my PhD at Stellenbosch University, we collected 4,300 and something photographs of their dorsal fin. So we used the notches at the rear end of the dorsal fin to identify one shark from the other. And that allowed us to count them without double counting the same individual multiple times, because now we knew which is which. So we also use capture mercury capture open population model to have an estimate of the shark number. And unfortunately, the results were surprisingly low. They were in between 300 and 500 sharks. And that part of the study was completed 10 years ago. And we were all expecting to find thousands of them. On top of it, we did a genetic study using microsatellite to investigate the number of breeders in the population. And the number of breeders wouldn't be for the population now, but it would have been for the population one generation ago. And these breeders are a number that is important to figure if the animals are enough to prevent inbreeding depression. And we know that for this kind of shark, we need in between 500 and 1,000 breeders to prevent closely related individuals from mating. And yet our number was way below the threshold. We didn't have 500 breeders. We found 333 based on our genetic work. So that was done for white shark, but we don't have this information for most species in South Africa. And when we speak about threat, a lot of study pointed towards overfishing as the biggest threat, because these animals are not supposed to be fished in the first place. And this is fishing in South Africa, and shark fishing, with very few exceptions for few species, is legal. We have demersal shark, longliners, inshore, offshore, demersal trawler, pelagic longliners, and bycatch of shark in other fishing devices, and then small-scale fishery. And on top of all of the legal fishery and the illegal fishery, we have bather protection program run by KwaZulu-Natal Shark Board in nearby Durban. So first threat for the shark is we are taking them out of the water. There was a whistleblower, Oliver Godfrey, that released, he was working as an observer in a famous boat called the White Rose, who is a demersal long lining fishery boat. They were working inside the Hope MPA. And this observer released his photos only recently, and he wrote an affidavit to describe what happened on this vessel. So the regulations are there, but if there is no effective enforcement on the regulation, then it's not helpful. There was a study showing that South African export of shark meat is between 2012 and 2022 was 14,000 tons. We export sharks to Australia that is eaten as fishes and chips. So one of the biggest threat for sharks in South Africa is definitely fishing, overfishing, bycatch, and lack of enforcement in the existing regulation. You can also notice in that gruesome photos on the right that is a hammerhead. So they're not supposed to fish the hammerhead. And what they do is they just chop the head off, because once they land it, they all sort of look alike. Then if lack of enforcement is not enough, we also have illegal gill nets. At the end of October, I went on Durban. There was a National Shark Conservation Forum. And Stephen Lambert from the Department of Forestry and Fishery and Environment shared this information on illegal gill nets. So these are gill nets are illegal in South Africa since the 90s because of the high amount of bycatch. They're very large mesh nets. And yet there are more than 200 mesh nets per year bought in South Africa or smuggled into South Africa. There is mustelus, the subfin sharks and triachis are being caught by the tons by these illegal gill nets. And they are trying to confiscate the catches and confiscate the nets, but is very widely spread. And unfortunately, they are very weaponized. So it's not as easy as going out there and removing the nets. The people trying to do this removal of the nets are faced with AK-47. So it's understandable that is challenging. On top of it, we have the use of shark nets and drumline on 37 beaches in South Africa. And this is a system that started in 1950 to reduce the number of sharks around beaches, with the concept that the more shark we kill, the less shark-human encounters we are going to see. So this system didn't change. We still have shark nets and drumline in KwaZulu-Natal. Some shark nets have been replaced by drumlines, which are basically baited hooks, to reduce the number of whales and turtles and dolphins caught in the gill nets, in the shark nets. However, the problem with these nets is that they are killing sharks not for consumption. They're just killing sharks out of fear, fear that people won't go and swim on the beach in Natal because the nets are not there. We have to also remember that we only have 6 to 8 shark-related fatalities in the world per year. For the whole world, 6 to 8 people get killed by sharks. So the presence of these nets is more of a perception of fear than actual human safety. These devices kill an average 500 sharks per year from 16 different species. They are allowed to kill white sharks, despite white shark being protected. They get an exemption for it. And they also kill around 300 other species like whales and dolphin and turtles. And then if that's not enough, we have indirect threats to these sharks that are at the top of the food chain. So pollution like a heavy metal is going to accumulate in their body and alter their reproduction system. South Africa is one of the hotspots for climate change. Scientists are recording it, and the climate change is creating a shift and a change in food availability, and that is also altering the sharks' food resources. And also were studies about the increase of acidity in the water that is breaking down the denticle that the shark have on their skin. That pictures that you see from under the microscope show the dermal denticles on the skin of sharks that are normally very well organized. They're very important for their hydrodynamism and protecting them from parasites. But when the water pH is too low and is too acidic, these denticles start growing all over, and that will give the animals more diseases. And then, of course, sharks eat other fishes. The largest shark, such as white shark, eat smaller shark. And if we overfish their food resources, then they cannot survive. But luckily, I think there are many solutions that we can look at, and I always advocate for looking at all of them all at once as soon as possible, instead of trying to say, no, which threat is the biggest one. One would be enforcement on existing regulations. So the same approach we have for rhino poaching should be adopted for large illegal fishing operation. And I want to highlight large illegal fishing operation because it's more complicated than that. We need to remember that we also have very small scale fisheries that don't do it legally, but it is their only source of protein. So we need to be aware that for certain people, they don't have an alternative to eat yet. So we can't just go there and target them. But there are some very large organizations that are fishing illegally that should be tracked. Put observers on fishing vessels, cameras. I'm going to show you later, there was a good software that came out a few years ago that could assist to track down the bycatch and what is caught in the fishing vessel. We need funding so that we can get more fishery independent research done, and done often and done again and again so that we can have a current situation of the shark population. There was a study about incrementing the number of marine protected area, support marine ecotourism, use eco-friendly alternative to shark nets. There is a list. I just want to go into some of these, like that software I was talking about, that the work from Michelle Lee, student of the University of Cape Town. She designed a software that linked to camera on the fishing vessel can recognize which species is which by using image recognition. And then at least we will know the amount of bycatch, because the problem with bycatch, which is when fishing vessels are going out and they're targeting certain species, and then in their nets, sharks get trapped, or on their hooks, sharks get trapped. That is what is called bycatch. And often we just don't have the reports. We don't know how many were taken by bycatch. They just put them back in the water once dead. So with this system, at least we will have an idea on what gets caught. Traceability, there is Abalobi actually just became a finalist in the Earth Prize. They develop a software that links a small fishery with restaurants or private consumers directly. So what that does, it gets a local restaurant and people to support the consumption of local species. So this is also important because the moment we have import-export of fish, now the harvest increases. for the local water. So with that, the small fishery gets a better value for their catches, and ideally they will have to catch less to support their livelihood. And of course, it reduces the carbon footprint as well, because the fish goes literally from the fisherman into the restaurant, thanks to this app link. That is the study from Nina for Barrier from Wild Ocean, where in 2023, she took the time to look and identify what do we know about chondrichthyans in South Africa, what do we know about their distribution, what is going to happen if we increase the marine protected area. And from that study came out that just a 5% increase in the marine protected area will result in the protection of 30% more of the range of 64 of these chondrichthyan species, which is massive, because that means that they will have 30% more safety and places to go and mate and not be fished out. Another one is marine ecotourism. So the marine ecotourism is great because it means that our marine resources, shark included, become a financial resource by staying alive and staying healthy. So all of the activities such as scuba diving with shark cage diving, snorkeling in the kelp, are incredibly good because it's a non-consumptive use of the marine resources, generates wealth for the local coastal population, allows for constant monitoring of the area because now you have people out on the boat every day. It is a potential for citizen science project. And in my experience, I've never ever seen a tourist going out on a shark cage diving boat and coming back still thinking that sharks are the same shark they saw in the movie. Shark has this capability of being the best advocate for themselves. They are just majestic and slow, and they do their thing around, and they're nothing like in the movies. So that really helped for people to get a different understanding of the animals. And of course, for the shark nets that we have in Durban, we need to look at eco-friendly alternatives. Now, of course, I'm biased because I co-founded the SharkSafe Barrier company, and I think it's the best solution ever. But we have other alternatives in South Africa that are happening. Shark spotters have been very successful in Cape Town. Just having people looking up if they see shark when the visibility is good is better than killing animals. Raising education and awareness, telling people what to wear and what not to wear, when to get in the water, when to avoid getting in the water, is already going to help reducing the chances of negative shark encounter. Fish with the shark spotters also use shark exclusion nets, which is not the same as the normal shark nets, because they have these ones have a much smaller mesh. They deploy them in the morning, take it out in the evening, and makes a safe area for people to swim in during the day. And again, reducing this fear and these chances. Because this shark-human conflict is not just a problem in terms of human safety, is a problem in terms of loss of tourism revenue. Tourists don't want to go if there are sharks around. And the environmental impact that these nets are creating, not just in South Africa, Australia has the same problem, is massive. So what I've been working on for the last 15 years is the SharkSafe Barrier, which is nature-inspired technology that keeps sharks separated from humans by biomimicking a thick forest of kelp. We built our prototype in Gansbaai and in the Bahamas from 2012 onward. And we tested our technology with white shark and bull sharks. The way it works is that it looks like kelp. So sharks naturally recognize this as a barrier they don't like. And if they come too close, they're going to feel the magnets that we put inside the pipes. Sharks on the nose and around their eye, they have a sense to feel electric and magnetic field. So when they come too close to our barrier, they can feel the magnetic field generated by our ceramic magnet, and they don't cross it. We tested it with 63 white shark in Gansbaai when we used to have a lot of white sharks in Gansbaai. And we tried to convince the animals to cross it by putting baits and chum on the other side of the barrier, and they never did. And that's valid also for bull shark in the Bahamas. So what happened in August is that our technology, 15 years in the making, once we have it tested and everything is published, we started the business thanks to Stellenbosch University and Innovus, the commercialization branch of our university, who is also protecting the IP. We now have a full-on company, and these that you're seeing are footage from the Bahamas, where we had our very first commercial installation to protect a beach. And this manatee that came around to say hello on the last day of installation also did me the best favor ever of swimming through it, so I could show how the pipes are just keeping sharks out.